You've heard me talk before about how planning and execution should be separate. Please don't combine them. And if you haven't heard me talk about that, please hear me now. Planning and execution should not go together. But I get the question all the time of how do you actually plan? And how do you, Amber, do your planning as somebody with ADHD? What does this actually look like? So today I'm going to break it all down for you. I'm going to tell you exactly what I do to plan and exactly how I stay on top of things and feel like I'm moving my life forward, and also tell you about the times when I don't feel like I'm moving my life forward and give you specific tactics and tools you can use. Make sure you listen to the end because I'm going to give you the exact framework that I use. It's going to be really helpful. But before we get in, let me introduce myself. My name is Amber Deibert. I'm a performance coach and speaker for enterprise account executives in tech. So let's talk about planning. As somebody with ADHD, I have learned that there are so many different ways to plan, and I really recommend figuring out what works best for you. A lot of people have the conception or misconception that they have to do a plan every single day. And yes, that may work for some people, but there's other options. You might be somebody who works with better having a plan once a week. You might be somebody who works better with a plan having planned just once a month. Or spoiler alert, I only make a plan once a quarter. It's delightful. So let me tell you about how I plan my day. I have a rule for myself, and this is relatively new, that if something is going to take less than 2 minutes, I take care of it right away. I don't stop. I don't hesitate because otherwise I have a tendency to just procrastinate and not do those things and hesitate, and then they pile up and then I feel really overwhelmed. So if it takes less than 2 minutes, I try to get it done right away. But let me tell you about my quarterly planning. So I follow a process called the 12-week year. The idea behind this is that if you think about planning for an entire year, generally speaking, there are going to be moments within that year where you're not productive at all. And there are going to be moments where you have suddenly like 5x productivity. Like, why is it that at the end of the year, you suddenly can crank out 5 times the results that you would in, like, say, July? So the idea behind it is to break up your time into smaller segments and plan for 1 quarter at a time, 12 weeks at a time, 90 days at a time, rather than planning for an entire year. And imagine that 12 weeks is a year. And what do you want to accomplish? The theory aside, I find this to be really, really helpful for me because 90 days is something that I can wrap my head around. I can think about the next 3 months and what I can do in 3 months and what I want to accomplish in 3 months. And the other piece of the 12-week year that I really, really like is the constraint that they use. So the way that it works is basically you decide, and this is going to feel very familiar for you, those of you who do KPIs or whatever other names we give for these things. You pick kind of a goal and then you break it down smaller of how you're going to get to that goal. And then you kind of map it out for yourself. So they recommend having ideally one goal that you're focused on for 3 months. If you want to do more goals, you maybe have up to 3, but you don't do more than 3. So you pick a focus for the quarter of what it is that you want to focus on. I found that this part has been the most helpful for me because having that constraint keeps me focused. And I inevitably, every single quarter, will have other things that come up of like, oh, I should do that. Oh, this should be a fun initiative. Oh, this would be great. And it's really helpful for me to think about this is what I'm committing to for 3 months. And if there's anything else that comes up, I put it in my list of ideas for next quarter. And then I can reevaluate it once this 90 days is up and I can decide if I want to do it the next time instead. But it keeps me focused and it keeps me constrained to doing just those things. So first you decide your 1 to 3 goals or your initiatives or things that you want to focus on or things that you want to change. You define what success looks like. So people talk about lead measures and lag measures. A really easy way to describe, if you haven't heard of these before, it would be like the lag measure would be that you lose weight and the lead measures are the things that you do to lose weight. So maybe you change your diet, maybe you go for more walks, maybe you use GLPs, I don't know, whatever you want to do, right? So you can, on the lag measures, you can tell if you're meeting your goal by, this is usually the quantitative things, and the lead measures are usually the kind of qualitative things that you're doing in order to meet those goals. So it's really helpful to define for yourself when you're setting up the goal or the initiative to define what does success look like? What am I hoping to achieve? So for myself, I might have a goal of getting a certain number of new newsletter subscribers that month. And so I think like, okay, if I want to add that many newsletter subscribers, what are the tactics or what are the lead measures that I'm going to do in order to try to get to that goal? So that brings us to our next step. Once you have your 1 to 3 goals defined, you want to then break out what are the tactics that you're going to do in order to try to hit those goals. What are the steps that you need to take? What are the things that you're going to do? And make them very specific and very clear. If you've listened to anything that I've said, hopefully you have heard me say that we get overwhelmed when things are unclear or they feel too big. This is a great practice in this moment to make things much smaller and very doable for yourself. Once you write out all the tactics for each one of your goals, you can then set an ideal date for those. So you can look at your 12 weeks and you can decide, is this something that needs to happen week 1? Is this something that maybe needs to happen about around a week 6? Is this something that needs to happen in week 12? Or maybe this is something that needs to happen every single week for the entire 12 weeks. So you assign kind of dates and deadlines to your recurring tactics that you're going to do and decide if they're going to be recurring or not recurring. So now you should have a list of 1 to 3 goals or initiatives that you want to do. And then you've built out all the tactics of what you're going to do in order to try to reach those goals. You following me so far? Once you have the dates set for each of your tactics, you can then just put it into a document and map out exactly what needs to happen each one of the 12 weeks. So this is really incredibly helpful for me. And I will typically build out a sticker chart for myself, which I think is the unsung hero of productivity tactics. Sticker charts are so helpful. And for me, I'll usually build one in sheets, and I love to color code it. I love to make things different colors. And I map out little check boxes for myself to mark off all the tactics that I want to achieve. And this is just what works for me. So use whatever works for you. Once I have all the tactics mapped out of everything that I need to do each week, then it's so easy for me. I'll have a physical paper on my desktop that I can see all the time, and I can see how close I am to achieving what it is I wanted to do. It's really, really helpful because for me, I get so hyper-focused on things. It's really hard for me to transition. So I might end a call and have 15 minutes open, and I'm like, what even am I supposed to be doing right now? I don't remember where I am. What day is it? I just get so in the zone with things that having this physical piece of paper on my desk is incredibly helpful because I can look at it and I can see where I am on the tactics that I want to do this week and know like what needs to happen next. So I love doing this because planning once a quarter is not very taxing. Usually when the quarterly planning comes up, I'm like, okay, you can do this. This is great. And I actually built a custom GPT for myself to take me through this whole process. So it just talks me through like, okay, I want to plan on 1 to 3 goals, and then I want to build out tactics for each goal. Like you can totally use AI to walk you through all of this. That helps me with knowing that I'm moving in the right direction. So really quick, let me take a tangent here. And there's 2 things that planning help with. So some people are stuck in this kind of hamster wheel. They're just trying to manage the day to day. They're just trying to get things done. And so they feel like they're really busy. They're in a hamster wheel, but they don't feel like they're moving in any particular direction. And it's helpful to have tools and techniques that you can use to manage yourself and get through all the minutia that you need to get through in a day. But it's also really helpful to know that you're going in a direction that you want to be going in, that you're moving towards what you want to actually achieve, and that you're making progress in life and it's just creating what it is you want. So it's really helpful to take this time and think about your quarter and think about what tactics would be meaningful for you. So I really like using the 12-week year as my process for making sure that I'm making progress on initiatives that feel meaningful to me and things that I want to achieve to better myself and better my life. But then there's also the minutia of the just random things that need to happen on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, all the nonsense that comes up. So how do you manage that? Well, again, I try to use the 2-minute rule that if it's going to take less than 2 minutes, I just get it done right away. And if there are things that fall outside of that, I can generally manage them pretty well, but sometimes it gets hectic. Sometimes it gets out of control. I can't handle everything that's happening. and I have a hard time staying on top of it. So when I get to that point, that's when I engage my prioritization tool. I've talked specifically about this tool in a past episode. Look for the video that talks about the 5-minute prioritization tool that will save you hours. But in a nutshell and a very broad way, as soon as things start feeling too hectic in my life, I know that it's because I'm keeping too much information in my brain. Our brains are horrible at containing information and giving us information when we need it, which is why you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and remember that you didn't send that email. Like, really not ideal timing. Thanks a lot, brain. So whenever I start feeling hectic or chaotic or too busy, I know it's because I'm trying to keep too much information organized in my brain. So the first thing I do is I brain dump all of it into a physical sheet. It's so helpful to do this on a physical piece of paper. I think of all the tasks that I need to do. I think about all my personal tasks, all my professional tasks, everything that needs to get done, and I put it all on the list. And then I prioritize that list. I mark everything either an A, a B, or a C. A is like top priority, B is medium priority, and C is low priority. Like, doesn't really need to get done, but it's helpful to get those things out of your brain just so that you don't have to ruminate on it anymore. Once things are marked down on A, a B, or a C, then I take only the things that I marked in A and things that are a top priority, and I subcategorize them. This is the key. This is the most important part that is going to change this tool from being mildly helpful to incredibly helpful. You take the things that are a top priority and you subcategorize them into a 1, a 2, or a 3. 1 is like urgent, 2 is mildly urgent, and 3 is like kind of low urgency. So now you have your list of what needs to happen today. The only thing you focus on today is anything marked an A1. Usually I start out with a list of 100 things and I feel so overwhelmed because there's no way I'm going to get through that whole list. Then I sort it by A, B, or C. And now I have 50 of them that are a top priority that have to get done. And I still feel so overwhelmed. And then I sort them by A1, A2, A3. And I usually have 5 things that absolutely have to get done today. A lot of people will say, well, what about the A2s? Those are important too. Like, yes, they are. Those are the top priority for tomorrow. So this is how I manage my days, my weeks, my quarters. I plan out an entire quarter with the initiatives of what I want to accomplish. I map out when those different tactics need to happen. I add them to my schedule or add them to a tracker so that I can see visually what needs to happen and where I am in my progress. And then second of all, in order to manage the day-to-day, I either have a rule for myself where I just take care of it if it's going to be less than 2 minutes. Otherwise, I put all of it on a list. I prioritize that list and I focus on only my A1 top priorities. One other thing that I use, and this is my client's very favorite tactic that I've ever given them, and it's the easiest one to implement. Some days I just grab a Post-it note and I write down my top 3 to 5 things that I need to get done today. A lot of times you kind of know like the burning things that have to happen. And so even just grabbing a Post-it note and writing down those top 3 to 5 things and having them in your physical space so that you can see what you need to be working on can be incredibly helpful to help you get organized. And again, keep planning and execution separate. Set aside time where you write down all your tasks and you prioritize it. And by the way, this prioritization task literally takes less than 5 minutes, usually 3. So don't let your brain talk you into it's going to be too hard to do. It's so fast and it will save you hours. And at the end of the day, you'll feel like a wild success because you actually got done what you needed to get done. I hope this was helpful. If you want more helpful tips, be sure to join my newsletter. It's not actually an initiative for me, but it's always fun to have more people hanging out with me over there. I love to hear the responses that I get back from my emails. People go wild over those emails. They love the tactics that I give and they feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so seen. I'm so glad I'm not the only one who has this situation. So if you want to join the party, come on over. It's really fun. You can join my list at mentalmastery.com/newsletter. And otherwise, I'll see you next week.